live from the Real Guppy Dockside Learning and Multimedia Center. It's the Real Angler Podcast with Community Kevin Brannon, brought to you by AFTCO Fishing Apparel and Tackle, designed to perform. Channel Island Sport Fishing, offering deep-sea fishing on quality sport fishing charter boats, and more. Costa Sunglasses. Discover life's greatest adventures with Costa. See what's out there. Daiwa. If you want innovation and quality in your fishing products, Daiwa has what you need. And now, here's your host, Community Kevin Brannon. Today's guest, Jeff Kopaska, Executive Director of American Fisheries Society. There we go.
What up? What up? Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. This is Community Kevin Brannon, the Guppy Guy, the Real Angler, Caliente Cal Bear. Speaking of which, where's Barry?
Can't do without
You
Barry.
can't start the show without Barry, Jeff. It just can't happen.
Oh.
Okay, let me show you who Barry is.
Oh, Barry
This
the
is
Bear.
Barry. I'm the California Bear, the Caliente Cal Bear, as Scotty here calls me CCB.
CCB.
The Caliente Cal Bear. I got this at a fishing expo in Sacramento. It's cut out of, I think, redwood. And
Nice.
there's a show out here that we do called the, SCE, California Expo. It's the one that kicks off the fishing trade shows out here every year. And my brother lived in
Nice.
Sacramento. So I went up there and bought Barry, so he starts the show. Because California is mine. It's the state bear. Just give you a little background on Barry and how he's part of the show. Scotty and myself used to do a podcast in Ventura and Santa Paula before we bought our own setup. And at a magic store, in the back room of a magic store. And I brought Barry in as a gift. What was it called? The White Rabbit?
It's still the White Rabbit. Yeah, still out there in Santa Paula. White Rabbit Magic Shop.
The White Rabbit Magic Shop, me and Scotty. Me and Scotty met. I worked at Orkin Pest Control as the greatest tech. And Scotty worked as our CSR. He was the greatest as far as taking care of the technicians and services. So we met up, and he said he did about 5 or 6 podcasts that he does.
Yeah.
At a podcast room. And I think within 2 months of me working at Orkin, we started Real Angler Radio 7-8 years ago.
Kevin wanted it, and what Kevin wants, he gets. So
I worked for. How's that? So anyway, today here, Jeff, I am terrible with names. I even get yelled at with parents when I call the football games. So I'll let you say your last name so I don't hack it all up. But today we have Jeff here with, making sure I got it right, American Fisheries Society. And
That's right.
he's going to tell you about what we do, which is kind of interesting, man, because in 2 weeks we're going to do a citizen science trip called Hoop There It Is. So we'll talk about what you do and how we're going to wrap that up. And I think we sent you the video that we did last year of the Hoop There It Is with the citizen science, and let people tell them. Viewers and listeners, we record it on audio and video. I met Jeff last year at the summit in San Diego, right?
That's right.
And somebody was like, you got to meet this guy, Kev. You guys have matching haircuts. You're almost like twins, except for Jeff's about 6'6", and I'm 5'6". So he towered over me, and we had a good conversation from everything. I think a little Jesus was wrapped in there, to fisheries management, to what he did. And then I ran into him again this last year at the summit in one of the coolest places I've ever been, which was the summit in Key West, Florida. And we said, hey, let's get you on another podcast. Jeff was going to be our guest a few years back, but something happened and he was traveling and the audio wasn't very good. So we were able to upload that. So, all right, Jeff, introduce your name, where you're from, and let's talk about what you do. That's enough about me telling you about Barry and telling the audience how we met. But I do like to give a little context to it. We don't script it, and kind of tell them with the work that you do. And again, how we can continue to grow some work and partnership moving forward.
You bet. So my name is Jeff Kopaska. I'm the Executive Director of the American Fisheries Society. I've been in that position for about a year. Prior to that, I worked for about 25 years as the fisheries statistician for the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Here we go. Well, Iowa DNR Fisheries right there. And worked in fisheries management in the freshwater realm. And I didn't have a lot of experience with marine fisheries. So like Kevin said, a year ago, I went out to San Diego. I met Kev. He's awesome. One of the most high energy people that I I have ever interacted with. Just really enjoyed meeting Kevin, learning about the community work that he does there, and wanted to figure out how my organization, the American Fisheries Society, could help out with what you all do. The American Fisheries Society has been around since 1870. We're 155 years old. We have about 7,000 members worldwide. We got about 6,000 of those folks in the US and Canada. We are the professional fisheries managers, the scientists, the professors that work in the area of fisheries. We publish books, we do scientific research,
we did get the books. We did get the books, and our interns are going to start implementing them now that I'm back from the summit and off the road. So we have weekend staff that's going to start helping utilize the books that you sent us. So they did show up, and we're going to start grow what we started to talk about. So you know, the eagle landed, and now it's soaring again with us here, and you'll see some work with that coming in. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. So we publish books about like the fish of California or fisheries management. We publish books about the salmon restoration work on the West Coast, and loving to hear how the salmon are swimming back upstream in the Klamath there in Northern California.
Let me ask you a question real quick from a fisherman.
Yeah.
You get back to it. So when fisheries manages the show, like the salmon, are you there to help with because you guys are DNR, right? Where we have the Department of Fish and Wildlife, right? DFW, pretty kind of the similar way. Is it restoration so that we could start fishing it again recreationally? Like the science that we're doing is to kind of help open it, or more conserve it, you know, or is it a combination of both? Just to have
it's both. It's both. Absolutely, it's both. You know, rehabilitation. If we talk about restoration, restoration is like trying to get something back to what it was before people showed up and sometimes mess things up. So conservation, keeping those endangered species or threatened species from going extinct, keeping common species common, making sure that there's clean water and abundant fish and people can utilize those. You know, that's what we do. Now that's what fisheries professionals broadly want to do. They want to make sure that in the marine ecosystem that those fish stocks are adequate, that they can be fished recreationally or commercially. Now, what does AFS do? We're the scientists behind all that. So
you are a scientist too before you became the director? Or you're
yes.
Is that your background?
Yeah. As the fisheries biometrician, I was a fisheries scientist. Yes. So
and the reason I ask you that, Jeff, again, this is gonna be a good conversation. I know we only got 30 minutes because I'm a nerd with that too. I'm going to become an environmental science teacher to get a credential. And this is near and dear to me as a fisherman, not just recreation. That's why we do the hoop narrative, because in that way, when we tell folks that are coming up, these types of jobs really exist, you know. That imagine if you got to go to work and have an occupation where you got to do, you know, some impactful work for the species, environment, like recreation. Like I'm sure that's something that you wake up with the fulfillment to get to go to work and do and be outside in nature and stuff. So that's why I wanted to bring that out, because that's part of what we could share with our youth that are growing up about, you know, look at these great, amazing jobs that you could have, whether California coast to coast, and the different and how important that is to all the things that you just mentioned, man.
Right. So what AFS does, let's say you're going to tell me a little bit about the hoop thing. Are you going out and setting out hoop nets? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. So what we do, it's kind of try to wrap it in about 60 seconds. There's a lot of life building lessons in it as well. So we promote this day. Kids show up, families and kids, right? It's really a leadership opportunity. We pick their names out of my hat, so they have to work with people that they don't know. You can't just bring my buddy and we're on the same team. So you got to problem solve. We pick out about 5 types of bait that they could use off the pier in their crab net. They get to determine what, as a team, they want to fish with. They get to set the net up, so they're leading. They're doing critical thinking. Then they get to set where they want to fish their net, and they get to pick a name. And then when they pull it up, however they want to time it, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 25 minutes, they have to measure it. and then also the species identification. You know, if it's a fish that we could keep, a crab that we could keep, or a lobster season, so they have to measure it, and then the team that has the most amount of inches, and they can still fish for it during it too, but it's really to identify species. It's a little bit of citizen science. They're little scientists. We have little tanks in the aquarium where we could keep them and they could touch them and kind of get pictures and video. So there's a multimedia aspect of it that we do. So it's kind of like a bunch in one, but it's a citizen science-based day is what it's based on. But we add these other things that, again, the parents got to step back. We can maybe help them a little bit, but we really want them to problem solve this and work together as a team as well. You know, so maybe one of them is the first pull one is the scientist that's writing it all out. The other ones are the one pulling the net, right? So that way they all get a chance to participate as a team, and somebody like me doesn't come in with all the energy and take over the whole assignment, right? Like, we want you to delegate responsibility as a team effort too, with people that you don't know, because in life you might have to work with people that you don't get along with or know. And if that prevents you from maybe taking a step into an area you want to get to, we try to get you to think about thinking bigger picture. So we wrap these other things in basically to this citizen science event. Yeah, that was about a minute. How's that?
That's great. So
and then,
now let me.
And then on another, one more quick, we will invite Department of Fish and Wildlife and other marine biologists out to help, so that the kids could see there's a continuance of occupational pathway. You could see a law enforcement warden. You could see a biologist, in case, again, students that are that 16 to 18-year-old range that might start thinking about a career, that there's somebody there for career pathways too.
Yep, perfect. So now let's step back to those nets, the crab nets or whatever. So what we do is we say, hey, you know what? There's a whole lot of different kinds of crab nets you can put out. There's a whole lot of different kinds of other nets. If it's a ship out on the ocean, there's different trawls that are used. We standardize that. Okay, if we're going to try to understand what's going on in the system, we want that trawl, for example, to go out. We want it to have this size of net. We want it to be in roughly this area, and we want to pull that trawl for 10 minutes or an hour or whatever. And then we're going to take everything that we catch, and we're going to empty that out, and we're going to weigh it, we're going to measure it, we're going to identify it, we're going to do all that stuff that you do. I want to know, how does this change over time? So we kind of help develop the standards for, okay, we're going to do it this way, and we're going to do it this way that we did it today, and we did it 5 and 10 and 20 years ago, so we can document the data that's being collected by the scientists, see how that changes over time, see how that relates what we caught to what we think the overall population is, then what can happen, in terms of angler catch or commercial catch or whatever, and how do we set regulations based on the data and the science behind that. So we help with standardizing data collection. What's the best way? What does the science tell us is the best net to use to try to understand what's going on with this particular species? Or if you're inland on one of the lakes, right? Okay, so we're going to go around and we're going to shock the fish, and the electric just stuns them. We collect them, we weigh them, we measure them, we put them back in the lake after we're done. So we do that in the freshwater environment. We do it on rivers and streams. Sometimes it's electricity, sometimes it's other mechanisms. So we standardize the data collection. We help out with the publication of results. Like, you do that project and you do the overall assessment, and then you write it up and you publish it in a scientific journal, or some of that stuff gets published in the books, like the books that we sent you. And so then we can look at what's happening today. We can compare things through time. We really integrate the science. And then that science is what is taught to these students, like if they were to go to school in natural resources. Here's what fisheries management looks like. Here's the background, what you have to know, how do then you make decisions? What kind of data do you need to collect to move forward and make responsible decisions about what should the recreational take look like? How big should we let the fish grow before you're allowed to harvest them? All of those what is the season? Why is there an open season and a closed season for lobster? That's what the scientists work to figure out, kind of thing. So that's the role that my organization plays, is helping make sure that that kind of stuff is collected in a scientifically defensible manner. And then like the people that work for California Department of Wildlife, they are members of our organization. They have access to the latest science. They understand how to use that to help develop regulations so that people can have a positive experience, with appropriate populations of fish to catch.
That's awesome. So if you're American fisheries management, then that means you do the Gulf, East Coast, West Coast, and freshwater?
Everywhere. Everywhere, all the time, everything. Yes.
So is it true that everybody always, when I go to these fishing expos and we go to them, right, we're from California, right, we always get like California's its own separate state, they were one of the toughest states for laws and regulations. Is that a true or false statement? Are you allowed to speak on that where you're at? You see California regulations, and some of it is a lot of preservation versus conservation on some aspects, whether it's commercial or residential. I'm sorry, that's pest control. Whether it's commercial or recreational.
Yes. So I cannot say specifically, California just has the toughest regulations. I don't know enough. Like, I haven't gone through and read every state's regulations to know exactly how you're different from Arizona or Iowa or Florida or whatever. Yeah. But what I can tell you is I know that there are a lot of There's a lot of development in California. There's a water challenge. Everywhere in the West has water challenges. Like, almost all of the rainwater from Los Angeles, flows through these concrete channels instead of natural rivers, right? So there are challenges, which then results in necessary regulations to try to protect. And so it wouldn't surprise me if California has some regulations on some things, but I can't say, Kevin, you're absolutely right, because I don't know.
It's funny because, you go there, people are like, don't bring it. I remember I was in Florida, and, and they're like, make sure you don't bring your laws over here, and good luck in California, some of the stuff that other fishing folks say. But again, we do a lot of fisheries management. We have the white sea bass out here. We do broodstock assessments. Again, in California, it's two states in itself. Right, you have NorCal and SoCal, so we don't deal with some of the, you have sturgeon closures up there. You have, of course, the salmon, Dungeness crab fishing, that shift, sea bass fishing. I just heard recently, I don't know if you've heard this, that they're thinking that white sea bass out here, the croaker, maybe moving it to like 36 inches because they feel like maybe the breeding, because, when we teach kids too about sustainable fishing, is that scientists have done the research to know that a halibut at 22 inches is already had a couple of times to reproduction, yes. Right? And now they're saying, well, maybe the sea bass, 28 inches, haven't had enough time to reproduce like we had initially thought. Have you heard anything about something coming from California with that, or that hasn't reached your desk yet? Or
that hasn't reached my desk. That's probably. It seems like something that is likely. That is one of those easier regulations to change if you're not seeing enough recruitment, we call it, if there's not enough of the next generations of fish coming on, then a way to help that is to protect those larger fish and allow them more times of reproduction to try to boost the numbers and get the population back to where you want it.
Yeah.
It's not pleasant for the angler because they catch this nice fish and they want to be able to utilize it. And so that's one of those places that, there's some push and there's some pull. What's best for the angler versus what's best for the overall population of the fishery.
Yeah. Is there, what about Do you have any help with this or ideas? I believe in like slot size limits. What do is that something that you guys are for or against, or think it's just depending on which fishery you're in? But I think, some of the bass we catch out here, I know other states have a lot more slot limit. I think the sturgeon has a slot when it's open. Again, that's more of a NorCal fishery. We don't fish too often. I've fished for them twice. My friend caught one time. The other time we just got sharks. But do you think slot fishing is a good way of going about fishing versus just overall length and trying to reproduce? Because I swear I think some of the fish we have out here, I think we don't. But again, I don't think California's into the slot fishing that you might see in other states that you agree with or disagree with it. Do you have any opinion on that or facts?
Yes, I have an opinion on that. Number one, anglers love regulations. They say they hate regulations, but in general, either the fishing's too good or the fishing's awful. One or the other. It's never, just right. And so one of the things that we hear as fisheries managers, we should do this regulation. We should do the slot. So here's slot limits. You have a slot limit for a specific reason. And the specific reason generally is, one, there's a large population of fish in that slot that are reproducing and you want to protect. And you're going to allow somebody to harvest a fish that's larger than that, but there's also only so much forage. There's only so much food for these fish. And so you don't blow the slot eating that food. So you want harvest of too many smaller fish below the slot, protect the slot, and allow maybe one fish over the size of the slot. Now, when there is a slot limit, what we've seen is anglers rarely want to harvest the fish that are smaller than the slot. So it depends on what species of fish that is. But like if you're inland fishing a lake and it's largemouth bass, everybody wants to only do catch and release for largemouth bass. So a slot limit for largemouth bass never works because nobody ever is going to harvest those small fish, even though that would be the absolute best thing for the fishery. So if you're putting a slot limit on, you have to know that there's going to be harvest of the fish smaller than the slot. Otherwise, a slot limit doesn't work, and you're basically just putting a minimum size regulation on that species.
Cool. Thanks for because that's always something I've thought about. Why don't we try some of that out here in California? How about, again, I know it's probably up to the state, right? You just kind of collect the data from what it sounds like and help them look for the research, because I know everybody has resource limitations and capacity, right? So an organization like yours doing this work really helps the scientist out if you don't have a whole lot of marine biologists and how big a state is. But when something is on a list, like we have a cowcod out here, I don't know if you're familiar with the cowcod fishery out here. We couldn't fish a certain depth for a while because you catch these fish that get the barrel trauma and they blow up.
Yep.
But they've opened up these areas for us to fish them again, right? To fish depths again. And they move some other things around. Like they give you something and then move the goalpost on another one, right? Like you can't keep 2 vermilion, but you can fish this depth. But these cowcod, they're thinking like, maybe there was like again, I'm sure this is probably up to California versus your guys as scientists, but do you ever see something that goes on the list that this science can help reverse, right? Like, hey, the fishery's great, keep one cowcod, or maybe a way that a Department of Fish and Wildlife can make some extra money for the state is maybe you get a tag. Is there like tagging for certain species and things like that? Do you see that happening with science where they're opening up in other states to, again, take something off a list or maneuver things around so anglers can have a take on something?
Yeah, so I think the best comparison to that is some of the Gulf and Southern Atlantic fisheries, like for snapper, where they have the depth, they have release mechanisms to get those fish that they've brought up from too deep, and they're putting those fish basically in a cage, get them back down so they're not blowing up, and doing research to see, is that effective? Is that reducing, the catch related mortality of those fish, right? And so that's absolutely something that the scientists that are members of our organizations are a part of. What can we do to reduce that mortality and allow those fisheries to continue? And these deep release mechanisms are one way to do that. And so you bet we've seen that. That's a part of it. Even where I live, in the middle of the country, I'll tell anglers, you can go fish that deep water below a dam on the Mississippi River, but if you're going to catch walleyes from 25 feet or deeper, you need to harvest that fish. That fish needs to be one that you keep, because, like you say, the barotrauma, that fish is going to be dead. So it's a choice to be made to fish that deep, and if that's where the fish are, that will be allowed, but you can't do catch and release because the barotrauma is just going to kill those fish.
Yeah. But have you seen, like I say, so this fish there with the cow cod we couldn't keep. We do every boat has to carry a releasing device now. We send them back down. But it seems like, the reason they opened them up is because when they did another, stock assessment, the population was fine again. That's, do they, say, okay, well, if it's fine, why can't we keep one again or something? I know we have the black sea bass out here that's endangered, and that's one species. And people don't really target those as much. You don't get as many incidental black sea bass catches as you could a cod when you're fishing, and there's 50 different species of ground fish. But just wondering if something we think about, like maybe they could, that's what I was asking. Have you ever seen something come off of a list that was on that from the science?
Oh, definitely. That's what, a lot of those marine fisheries, the population assessments are for, so that you can get a species back on the list, that off of the banned list and onto a list where you can fish for those fish again. Yeah.
Put them on the fillet list.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
I caught one cow cod, man, in all my years before when I was a pinhead, because it's been like 25 years that we couldn't fish that depth because of this particular species. And I brought it up, and it didn't have barotrauma, and I threw it in the bait tank, and I was gonna have it filleted when I was a pinhead, so I had to scrub the boat. I'm the last one to leave, right? Scrubbing the boat for the next day, and so they locked up the boat with all the fillet knives. So I had to give the fish away to somebody because it was a whole fish. I didn't even get a chance to eat one yet, man. And it was like 10 pounds, beautiful, big, gorgeous, orange, bright fish, and I was like, I had to give it away. So, dang it, I'm in the hunt for one of those. So yeah, man, you know what I think would be interesting too for you to help with learning all this great work you're doing and what you do, maybe to have you Skype in on a Thursday night or something when we have our students, if you're interested in something like that, because we
definitely
teach a lot of fisheries management, responsible fishing practices, like things I learned on the boat working with. I was just editing a video that we're gonna put up from our Halloween event. And we're telling the kids, like, we're trying to get these fish back in the water within 45 seconds. So we get them out, we put them in our little aquarium. We have little bubblers in there, and we have a couple small little sharks that we caught. And then we have this releasing device that we let off the pier that we slowly bring it down, so we're not dazing them or stunning them, tossing them off of a 2-story pier. And then we can see the fish swim away. But we try to, don't grab them with the rag, don't stick your hands in their gill. So we teach a lot of handling practices as well.
Absolutely.
I think it'd be good to maybe have you, as the guest periodically, man, to kind of go over some of these regulations too.
For sure. Absolutely. I can do it, and I'm happy to do it, would love to do it. And there's, the folks that you bring in, like the conservation officers and those biologists that work for the state agencies, they're awesome at too. We just gave an award 2 years ago at our meeting to an organization called Keep Fish Wet, and they you can find them on the internet. I think they're based out of the East Coast, but they promote all that kind of stuff that you were just talking about. What are the best ways to handle the fish for the fish's health and well-being? Yeah.
We caught a lobster the day that lobster season opened. And, you need a gauge to measure it. Every angler has to have their own gauge, and you have to have a lobster report card, right? So literally Saturday, it opens like midnight, Friday night going into Saturday. Saturday morning, we had a Girl Scout day. And I was like, next time we're going to release this thing into butter, have a little, but right now we really have to let it go because of this reason. And it was a nice big, 2.5 pound lobster that would have been perfect market size. But, you know, we had to show them, you know, that one time we had a organization where their admin was trying to take home a small halibut. And I'm like, we can't do it. And she's like, they're going to be mad. The parents, I'm like, you're going to have to just be mad at us. But that's probably the only time. But, you know, it's in it with the kids. I know we fish like calico bass or kelp bass out here. And this is what our kid fishing days. And I was teaching a class 2 days ago on the school is it kind of opens up what the youth want to participate in. We had kids that were on the boat with us that quit fishing and all they wanted to do was measure calico bass and release them. They would come running, hurry up, that's a calico bass. These are like 10-year-olds, right? But they went straight marine biologists on us. They were there with the deckhand measuring it. We got to get it back in the water, right? Don't mishandle it. And they were like, they went from angler to straight freaking environmental steward in the course of a trip, man.
That's awesome.
Species, knew the size, helping people get it off their hook. They didn't want to fish any longer. They wanted to make sure that those fish were back in the water if they weren't big enough, man. It was really neat thing to see. So I tell them, you know, these days that we do, they're not everybody's a diehard angler and out there to catch fish and keep a hook in the line all 3 hours. We have kids that are like, can I cut the bait and can I measure? And this is just as fun to make sure that I'm following regulations and helping Mr. Kev. So, there's broad, you know.
That's so important too. I really, really appreciate the fact that you are showing these kids the right way to do things. That, hey, we would love to keep this fish. This is a legal fish, but this is what the rules say, and we're going to do this the right way, and we're going to follow the rule. And even though the season is open, I'm supposed to have this or that or whatever. We're going to do this the right way. And it's so important to teach people, you know, hey, these rules are here for a reason, and, you know, trust the scientists. You know, there's a reason why this is the way it is, and it's important to do that. And I thank you for showing leadership in that manner.
Yeah, and also teach them you got to do the right thing when nobody's looking, right? So that's why I always tie in these little lessons, right? Like there's a moral that we got to have. And guppies don't litter, guppies don't poach, you know, but poaching is an ugly word. Even like jokes, because they'll try to hold the crab, you know, and then I'm like, you have to hold it carefully because if you drop it, you'll crack it, and we know crack kills, right, kids? And like, yes. So the parents that giggle from the background, but it is part of them saying, you know, how we protect these little crabs are not just things that we could torture and squeeze, that we got to make sure we're delicate with them too. But again, I tell them, how can you set an example at 8 or 9, you know, to your little brother or sister by doing things the right way and how we're responsible, right? And that's
absolutely
right. And they're like, you're right. So, you know, there's these, if you do this, I tell there's two types of people in the world, man. People that return shopping carts and people that don't, you know. Don't be the person that leaves a shopping cart way out in the parking lot, man. Put it back, you know. It's simple.
Absolutely. And it's the same thing with anglers. How often do you go to the beach or go to the river or go to the lake or whatever, and you want to go and you want to fish, and somebody left their bait container or they left, you know, all their other litter and this and that. And anglers can be our own worst enemy, you know, because we're not doing the things that we're supposed to do to show that we value the natural resources that we've been gifted with. And that is so disappointing. And it tells us that we're just not doing things the right way. And I really appreciate you, you know, illustrating that fact with, you know, those two kinds of people. It's the same thing with the two kinds of anglers. The ones that are going to do it right, the ones that are going to clean up after themselves, the ones that are going to make it better for the next person coming along, and the ones that don't care about the other people in the world.
Yeah. We're even, because you talked about water management. I know you got to go here pretty soon, but the water management, and that's our responsibility too. It's not just taking fish, it's how we, you know, steward the environment. Yep. Like we had a little piece of plastic floating in the water the other day. And we carry a little net in our little electric boat so we can collect trash and put it away. And they couldn't tell if it was a jellyfish or a piece of plastic. I'm like, now imagine a sea creature can't tell the difference, right? So now you got these fish eating pieces of plastic, or a turtle or something else that mistakes this bag moving for a jellyfish, and now they're eating it because they can't. They can't tell the difference either. So there's a steward part, because the water quality, right? There's a lot more to, again, their habitat and ecosystem that we're responsible for, again,
Yep.
besides just, oh, we didn't catch any fish today. Or even if we go out and people leave stuff behind, leave it better than we found it, right? We'll patrol the pier and pick up everything that was left behind before we leave, and not, even though it wasn't yours, why can't we be again stewards of the environment and just clean up the whole area while we're here? And
Definitely.
So,
Yep.
And I know some people that might listen don't realize, I think that I believe the Department of Fish and Wildlife and stuff has a lot to do with water quality too. It's not just wardens making sure you have a license and influencing regulation, but they're in charge of some of the water laws and things as well that are bigger. And by us sharing these messages for listeners, because sometimes people just see a badge and not know exactly, again, it's just a warden or another scientist trying to close this down. It gives people a platform to share their messaging and the purpose that they're there, not just to, another bill or a ticket, right? That we're seeing how we are trying to really steward this planet.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's 34 minutes in. We're at 11:43. I think you said you had to take, man, this conversation is great. We got to do this again. Maybe we could do it on a level where a fish that's something, but I'd like to work more with you, Jeff, for sure. And then,
absolutely.
And then having you come in. The cool thing, again, if you could do nights, like we have our interns here sometimes on the weekend or like 6:30 at night. I know it's our time. I don't know how many hours you're different, but that's the time that we know where sometimes the wardens can't come in. So if you're open to that.
Give me some lead time and I'll let you know, but I'm certainly not going to say no off the bat. I'm willing to jump in and be part of it, from time to time for sure. And let's see how this goes over, with your community. And if it's of interest to people and they like it, I'm willing to come back for sure.
Heck yeah. And the last thing is about the assessment. I'm going to see if we could get, again, because we have a few more high school interns that want to do marine biology. That's what they came in to intern. If we could put together all the stats that we get from this event, and then I'll share it with you. Okay.
Sure.
To see, like, we'll do a little assessment of our own, and whether it's published or not, but we'll go all out on this hoop. There it is. I'm going to make a flyer for it right now, and then we'll do a little assessment and get some data, and then I'll have part of their project is them submitting it to you to take a look at.
Perfect. That sounds awesome.
And then maybe you could grade it or tell them, and that way they could say, yeah, I'm getting my, I'm really not just doing these projects that we're mocking it up. Like there's some of these really are being viewed and looked at by peer-to-peer review and stuff like that, so they could build it up their portfolio. And
Definitely.
All right. So
yes.
I'll let you go. Barry's going to say goodbye. Anything else? Oh, where could they find you and stuff? Give out your information and where they can look you up, .coms, .orgs, that kind of stuff.
Fisheries.org is our website, and you can find me there. And J Kopaska at fisheries.org is my email, but you'll find it all on the website. And there's just tons and tons of resources available there.
Yeah, and then Scotty's really good at putting your logo and stuff. So by the time I send you the 2 links, want to be audio, want to be visual, you'll see some graphics and your information will be up on the screen too. So
perfect.
We'll get you in there. All right, Jeff, thank you very much. This is Barry saying so long. Hey, man, keep up the incredible work. Again, I think we could probably talk for a couple hours on stuff because I'm a nerd when it comes to this and the importance. So thank you for taking time out of your day, and we will be in contact and stay in touch, my friend.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you, Kev.
Yes, sir. So, Barry, let's go. Let's go.
See you, Barry.
Today's guest, Jeff Kopaska, Executive Director of American Fisheries Society. To learn more about Real Guppy Outdoors, please visit www.communitykevin.com. Brought to you by AFTCO Fishing Apparel and Tackle, designed to perform. Channel Island Sport Fishing, offering deep-sea fishing on quality sport fishing charter boats, and more. Costa Sunglasses. Discover life's greatest adventures with Costa. See what's out there. Daiwa. If you want innovation and quality in your fishing products, Daiwa has what you need. This has been a Rough Edge Studios production.